You're listening to Conversations with Maria Menounos, a one-on-one, in-depth interview series with today's biggest stars and social influencers. Stories fans want to hear and stars want to share. And now, your host, Maria Menounos.
Center stage would be the breakout role for one of today's biggest movie stars, Zoe Saldana. Zoe's become a leading figure in film, fashion, and culture. Incredibly, at a young age, she has starred in not one, not two, but three different blockbuster movie franchises: Pirates of the Caribbean, Avatar, and Star Trek. She may even have a fourth on the way in Marvel Comics' highly anticipated Guardians of the Galaxy. Arguably, there is no other female movie star in the entire history of film who's achieved this distinction. I'm Maria Menounos, and this is my conversation with Zoe Saldana. Hi, Zoe.
That was so awesome.
Did you like it?
Yes, I'm sitting back going, who are they talking about? This sounds like really amazing.
Kind of surreal, right?
Yes,
Well, like
very
I said,
surreal.
when I was doing my research on you, you've had such an incredible career and you've worked so hard without breaks, and you've worked with the biggest directors and the biggest stars, and so you deserve that intro.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, God. Okay.
Let's start. I want to kind of take this chronologically. I want to talk about your childhood, and I know that you guys obviously experienced a tragic loss with your dad at a young age. You were 9 years old when your dad passed away in that car accident, and your mom moved you and your family to the Dominican Republic. Tell me a little bit about that transition and how you coped with that loss at such a young age.
It was hard because it's the culture was very different. You're growing up in a city that is such a melting pot of cultures. And I remember, growing up in New York, the first 10 years of a child's life really defines a lot of things that you like, from like climate to language to smells, it's so many things that are so important that you take for granted every day. Like coming home from school, we lived in a building in Queens where every door would release a different smell, because you had Indian neighbors, you had Italian neighbors, you were Latina, and so you smell everything that everybody's cooking, and that was what reminded me the most of New York, besides the snow and Santa Claus and McDonald's.
The freezing cold.
Yes, and people that spoke English with different languages, names of your friends that you couldn't pronounce, holidays that friends celebrated that were very, very different. So from that, to move to like a small island where it belongs to your family, like that's kind of like how you feel, because that's where you used to visit in the summers, but now you're going to stay there indefinitely, and the climate is very humid and hot. There are no pine trees, therefore there are no Christmas trees, and there's no Santa Claus. It's three magicians. Everybody speaks just one language. It's one religion. The society was very different because it's a different environment, and it's a bit more harsh, especially for women. So it was a very big culture shock for us, and at many times we were a little misunderstood and picked on by kids, because kids can be really mean. When they don't understand somebody or somebody feels different from them, they pick on them, and I know it's a defense mechanism. Now that I'm an adult, I see it as that, but it was very hard for all three of us. But the good thing that came out of it was primarily we learned to stick together, my sisters and I, and we became this force to be reckoned with that is still everlasting, up until this day. And also we were able to learn about our culture, the culture that runs through our DNA, which is very beautiful and something that we take a lot of pride in. And it's a culture that we recognize on how we would want to make it better. Not just for Latinos, but also for women. And we were able to sympathize with how my mom grew up, which is very important. There's a disconnection sometimes when you're a first generation with your family at some point, because you don't see this consciously, but you make a decision to either follow, become one culture or become the other. And that didn't happen for us, fortunately, because we lived in Dominican Republic and then we came back to New York, where we felt that we didn't have to be one thing and neglect another. We can just be both and be very prideful of both cultures that we come from.
I wonder, with that, I have had similar kind of feelings. My parents are immigrants from Greece, so I didn't have two different parents, two different cultures to deal with. But being here in America, and when I go to Greece, people always say, "Are you Greek or are you American?"
Yeah.
And then the Americans are mad if you say you're Greek American.
Yeah.
If you're Greek, they want you to say you're Greek American.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I'm Greek, because you want to be you're so proud of where you're from, and you want to be so, respectful of where you come from.
Yeah.
And I know that you've always said, people ask you in the Dominican, are you Dominican, or, how do you describe yourself? And what do you say to them?
I mean, I used to say so many things, because I'm such a masala of so many cultures. The American culture, include North America and Latin America. We're the youngest race on this earth, so we're only 500 years old. So there's a lot that we have to learn, but also there's a lot that we have to teach by being the young ones. There's a fierceness in our attitudes, that we just go boldly somewhere, and we don't, it's not even about being respectful, it's about pleasing yourself. So I did go through a phase where you would say whatever would please, whatever community you were in, but at the end of the day, I don't want to please anybody else before I can please myself. I don't feel like this more than this. I'm Zoe, and I grew up in Queens, New York, and I speak Spanish and English because I am of Spanish heritage, and I'm very, very proud of it. But I'm an American, and I don't want another community to come and take that away from me just because it runs in my blood. So I just want to be able to be and be respected, because it's sort of, the older I get, the more I understand that is not going to be what's going to define me. What's going to define me is the fact that I'm a woman in a man's world, and that I don't say in a negative connotation whatsoever. I'm realizing that the more and more I go out there, and I'm on my own, and I become more and more independent, I'm realizing that it is a bit challenging for women to be their own bosses, to be full-time moms and impresarios, to be religious figures of leadership, and be respected and honored, and also to be a part of your government, and have sort of like a feminine presence there. It's very difficult, and it's going to be harder. It is not impossible. So that said, I don't want to spend more of my time explaining to people what I am for their sake. I'm done pleasing others. I know who I am. You can see who I am. Let's move on.
Yeah. It's true. You're Zoe. That's it.
That's it.
I have people who will always ask me, like, what kind of different friends do you have? I'm like, I don't look at my friends in that way. They're just my friends.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what color they are, what ethnicity they are,
what sexual preference they have. It's just, that's Joe, that's John, that's Peter, and that's it. And I'm very happy that I'm learning that, I'm discovering that, and I am protecting it fearlessly. Like I'm really happy to be making sort of like these ground discoveries about what is the true meaning of being a human being on this earth, and being American versus European or African or Indian. It's just, we're people, and whether or not we're migrating for our own purposes, we're still people that need to be treated with respect and absolute equality, and that can never deter us from trying to always be righteous in that fashion.
Very well put. When you look back at your time in the DR, and your mom is now having to raise you guys alone, I know you said that you had to kind of help her sometimes too. Tell me a little bit about that, and what that time was like. What did she instill in you?
I think my mom broke in a way that she became a very fragile flower, and we were at an age where your parents are superhuman. They're supposed to be superhuman. Whatever you need or you want, they're supposed to deliver it. You know, whatever is causing you pain, they're supposed to heal it. And, you know, or fear, they're supposed to make all the monsters go away. So all of a sudden, we're in this dire need of my mom to provide shelter for us. And my mom, there were days where she couldn't get out of bed. So, because she had lost the love of her life. And that was very hard for her. And she tried the best she could to be there for us. But sometimes we understood that we just had to be there for her. And, you know, there was a little bit of resentment, you know, when you grow up to be a teenager and you kind of go, God, you know, my friends just had to worry about doing their homework and getting good grades. And then they would go to Cancun for spring break. And we would have to stay home and sort of do chores and things like that. And look after, you know, our elders and stuff like that, because that's very common in our culture, in Latino culture. You take care of your own, which is something that I take great pride in, but it's also excruciatingly stressful for a young person to have to take on all these responsibilities when your job is not to inherit the trials and tribulations of the adults that are raising you. It is not your fault and it is not your problem. So, you know, it was hard at times, but I'm very happy that my mom never tried to conceal anything from us. When she was having a bad day, she was having a bad day, and she would just tell us, Mommy's not doing so good. And I mean, it breaks my heart now because I didn't understand it as much as I understand it now, but we were also patient with her. And she was patient with us. So there were moments of a lot of sadness, but then there were moments in when she would wake us up and we would go to like an empty parking lot and do donuts for 3 hours, you know, in the car. And we didn't know why Mommy was doing that, but she needed to do that, and she brought us along, and it was awesome. And then you would hear kids tell you, oh yeah, I went to this resort with my parents, you know, for the weekend. What did you do? It's like, oh, I did donuts in the parking lot of the Home Depot with my mom, and it was just as awesome. So I'm happy you had a great time at your resort.
Funny. Oh my God. Yeah. How did you guys keep your dad's memory alive in your house?
By always talking about him. You know, it's just, if it made us, whenever we wanted to remember him, my mom always said you can write to him, you can talk to him, you can wear his clothes, because we kept his clothes. And you can see all the pictures, and any questions you may have, you can always tell me. And my mom never concealed her sadness. So whenever she would hear a song that would remind her of my dad, she would just start crying. And it was very beautiful. So we just remembered him that way. Sorry.
No, please. It's like, it's you know, it's obviously a really important thing to look back on. You're making me cry now.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
But we lived with so many happy memories, because he was a really funny person, and I still, to this day, I can just close my eyes and remember the way he laughed, and then I can hear myself laugh. And to certain people, like my grandma goes, oh my God, you laugh like a man. Like a big truck driver.
About you, right?
Yeah.
Is that how your dad laughed?
Yeah, my dad laughed like a truck driver, like from like the gut. And so, you know, whenever I laugh, it makes me think of him. And I'm very happy that I still am able to dream with him, you know, and
he's in your dreams still?
Yes, and he talks to all of us, and
That's
it's beautiful.
Special.
So whatever people want to believe in, if it's through spirituality or energy or just your sense, memory taking you back and reliving these beautiful moments, it doesn't matter what it is, he still stays alive in us. And it's been maybe, I'm going to be 35 in a month, and it's been, I don't know, I was 10, so it's been, 25 years since I've said the word dad, but I still remember him in so many ways. And I remember the last time I had a dream about him, I was in my 10-year-old form, but my niece was there. So I don't know if I was there with her or I was her, you know, but I felt her presence there. And he was taking us to the circus. And
did you ever go with him to the circus?
No, my mom loves the circus.
So you must
But
have
we were
connected
there.
all of
But
that.
I love carnivals, and I love the circus. And to me, life is a circus. And he was there with me, and we were just having the bestest time ever. And I remember waking up and just being so grateful that he had visited, you know. So he will live forever. And yes, it's unfortunate, you know, when you have to go through such a traumatic tragedy. But it doesn't mean that you have to forget that loved one, you know. He that loved one, he will always live forever in our memories.
And your laugh.
Yes. That's you. See, and I heard your little gaggle. Oh my God!
Oh my
It's such a peculiar laugh, just like mine.
I know.
I've been in Paris where I laugh, and women have looked at me going, "Oh my God, what was that?"
They're like,
It is. It's loud. It's really loud.
I love it. You know, I want to talk about Center Stage a little bit because I went back and I was watching it, and I know that you were a dancer in the DR, and that's where you discovered it. And I just have to say, I loved, first of all, you were so good in it. And
you.
I loved your toughness and that whole, it was just so cool. But I also loved the scene where they shot the ballerinas prepping their ballet shoes.
Yes.
Because I would never think or would never know that that's what goes into it. Did you have to do all of that all the time? Burn your shoes and put them in the shower and all that?
No, there are things that you do to protect yourself and obviously be comfortable. It's almost like putting on a pair of jeans, and you know how you want to put on your jeans, or how you want to wear a shirt or wear your shoes. You'll put some extra little soles or cushion, or you'll put alcohol on the leather just to loosen it up. You know, pointe shoes are very tight on your feet, and it becomes it's a very uncomfortable thing to have. So you want to start conditioning your body to get used to that kind of pain, so that one day you won't feel it. You'll feel the pleasure more than the pain. The pain will always be there. So that's one thing that your teachers kind of tell you. I didn't do that much work on pointe, but when I was doing it, you do have to find a way to be comfortable, because everybody's feet's very different. Some people have longer toes than others, therefore, so you can't really roll, you know, you can't really cover them. And some people, their toes kind of mesh up together, so you have to put things in between them, that way they won't blister up. And you know, you have to cut your toenails in a certain way, because when you cut them too round, you'll get ingrown nails. It's just all these little things, and you'll burn your ribbons. If you don't know how to tie them correctly, you'll burn your ribbons. Sometimes you want to sew extra elastic because you want more support on your arch, and there's so many little things. And it's also the way that you wear your leotard and your tights. You know, unless you're in a class where you have to, there's a uniform and it's a requirement, which is like a black leotard and pink tights and this and that and a bun. But if it's a free for all thing, you want to cover your hips if they take longer to warm up, or if you have a knee that's more delicate than the other, you sort of, you know, you wrap it.
Or leg warmers.
Yes.
That's what that's all for.
Yes.
So now, do you have lingering injuries from that?
I do. I guess throughout the years. In my 20s, I wouldn't feel them as much, but now that I'm getting older, mortality's a bitch, man. What the F? I would hear this, and people, and I honestly, I'm telling you the honest truth. People would tell me, and it's like, what are you talking about? I'm going to live forever. You know, and then all of a sudden you're going down some stairs, and you hear a crack in your knee, and you just go, what was that? And then it's throbbing. So I do have injuries, and I was told that not in my 20s, because you're still so healthy and your cells regenerate so much quicker. But as you grow older, it takes your body longer to recuperate. So if you slept wrong, it will bring up not an injury, but just like a swellingness, because that joint, you used it a little too much, or you misused it, so it tends to get sore every now and then. So my hips and my right knee are definitely areas that I have to protect, especially when it's humid out.
I'm going to take you to cryotherapy, and I'm going to heal you up.
No, I can't wait.
It's going to be amazing. You know, 2 years after Center Stage, where you start as that sassy ballet dancer, you were there for someone else's film debut, Britney Spears in Crossroads. What was it like working with her at the height of her career?
It was big, you know. She was sort of like the biggest artist that I had met, where it was just such a big commotion, like all these security people, so many people around her. But when you really got to meet her and talk to her, which was, you know, didn't happen as much as you would think, even though we were doing a film together, she was such a sweet person. And I remember around that time, there were so many artists that were rising, pop artists, especially female singers, that were just as talented, or even, you know, could hold a note more than Britney would, but they weren't as famous as she was. And then I realized after meeting her that she had something that they didn't. And she has a good heart. She doesn't talk bad about people. You can look back in any interview that she's done, and she never spent 1 second talking someone down to make herself look better. And at that time, there were a lot of pop princesses that were coming up that were trying to make a name for themselves by putting Britney Spears down. And that I just felt that that was done in such poor taste, and it was such poor characters of them to be doing that. When in reality you should just be focused on yourself. And I really am a true believer that children gravitate towards innocence. You know, so it wasn't a coincidence that they could listen to another artist that could carry a note more than Britney, but they chose her because she was nicer. Yeah. So that's the one thing that I do have to say about her that I got to see up close and personal. And I felt very proud for her to be that way. She was just a little girl from like a small town, living her dream and surrounded by a lot of people that at that time didn't have the best of intentions for her because they were benefiting a lot from her. And I do believe that that had a huge influence in her kind of maybe, you know, losing her way. But I'm really happy that she's now in a safe place, and that she's, you know, looking after her children, which is so important. Absolutely. So I just wish her the best, always.
Have you bumped into her since your rise in your career at all, anywhere? Not
really, but I would love to have that opportunity to see her and just give her like a big hug. You know, we're both women now. It's kind of, you know, young adults when we met, and now look at us. She has kids, and and I'm older. So I would love to see her.
Are we gonna have kids someday?
Yes.
I'm trying to figure this whole scam out myself right now. I'm turning 35 like you in June. I'm like, clock's ticking. What are we gonna do?
Your clock ain't ticking, honey. Okay, please.
Do I have time? People scare us. Everyone's like, 35, your eggs deplete. I'm like, what am I gonna do?
Then freeze them. With technology right now, with how we are, with medicine being so advanced, you can literally freeze your eggs.
I know, I started it.
And it's amazing. That's beautiful. And I am also going to do that, because I am not going to let anybody dictate what is considered a fruitful time for me to be a mother. And I don't want to have anybody, certainly not a man, tell me when my expiration date is coming.
I love that.
It's not going to happen. Men at 50, they're fabulous. And at 50, we're so not sexy. Give me a fucking break. Sorry. Please. I just don't agree with that at all. So, you know, and you run into people in this business, men, obviously, more than women, that are in positions of power that remind you that you can't do a certain role because you're too old. And you go, are you kidding me? The star of the movie's 49.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be his love interest. First of all, in real life, I would never date him. Never, ever date him.
Is that too old for you? Is that why?
I just, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay. And maybe, maybe it isn't. But the thing is the fact that at 35, I'm too old. They want a 26-year-old to, it's sort of like, come on, people. Like, there's something wrong with the way we're turning here, and we need to kind of take a break and assess ourselves and kind of be a little more equal. And if that is not something that's going to happen, then I feel that women, we do need to come together and become more unified, as opposed to allow allow other entities to come and rip us apart and compel us to compete against each other. When we're absolute gifts and we can be such strong assets together, you know, and kind of change a lot of things so that we can best accommodate our environment, so that when we get pregnant, we can work in companies that will pay for our maternity leave. We can also work in companies that will give us parking spaces closer to the building so that we won't have to wobble our way for 3 blocks to come into our offices. And we shouldn't be afraid to ask for this, because we're not asking for special treatments. We're having your babies.
Yeah. I love that.
So this best suits everybody.
But you're right.
I don't.
How do you deal with, you know, when I look at your career, you, like I said, you haven't stopped. You have movie after movie after movie each year. I don't think you ever take breaks. Maybe you do. It didn't look like it. Is that fear-based in any way because of the ageism we have to face? Because I know sometimes I think about it like that. I'm like, God, I better do it now while I can, because who knows what's around the corner, you know, and the competition is really big. And there is so many, you know, 20-something-year-olds that want to do what you do and then that want to do what I do. Yeah. So do you think about it at all? And do you start to plan?
I could entertain it, and that will just take a lot of peace of my mind, and I don't want that. Everybody's journey is everybody's journey. So you're having a younger generation, and you're in between an older generation, so you're going through your time, and whatever's meant to be for you will be meant to be for you. Your job is to wake up every morning trying to be a better person. I'm tapping into this right now. I'm not saying I achieve it every day. Sometimes it is a battle. I will be affected. I'm not made of steel. But the one thing I don't want anymore is to live with that anxiety that my time is coming up. When in reality, I've only been on this earth for 35 years. And if I'm blessed with 35 more, possibly 50 more, that means that I don't have to have it all figured out right now. You know, and so I just won't allow it in my life. So, and the way, and also it's making that decision for yourself that I don't want to be in an environment that doesn't accept me and respect me for me. So I won't do it, and I'm pretty sure that I will find things to do in the profession that I like, and I will find happiness. You know, to me, my time is worth everything. So I want to spend it well, and with great people that are deserving of my time as I am deserving of theirs. So that said, when you walk into a room having that kind of truth in your soul, you feel happier. So whether or not somebody says something that wasn't cute, you just go, all right, they're having a bad day. Obviously what they said, even though it's targeted towards me, has nothing to do with me. And you kind of move on.
But if it's that role that you really want and you have a producer saying you're too old for it, what do you do?
You're bummed, because I really wanted to play that role, and there is not an abundance of great female roles out there, because there aren't that created, you know, that much. But
we're not there yet.
Yeah. But we are, you know, it's just not at the pace that I would like it to be. But we are making a change. We have to be half full, because if I was half empty, I would be a very bitter person, and I don't want to do that. So. When I'm told by somebody that the reason why they're not going to give me a role is because they consider me too old for the part, and I know that this role is not of a college student, you know, then I feel very disappointed in that person, and sad, but also relieved that they're much older than me. So therefore, that person and that person's ways will cease to exist quicker than mine. So it's almost that it's move on. Just move on, because that means that you were also spared of working with somebody that is very limited. So I can't allow that to consume me much more than it can. I'm bummed over a part that I didn't get, and I can only wish that whoever got it does amazing with it. And then I know that whatever is out there that's meant for me, I'm going to always give 150% of myself, And when I get it, I'm going to be really happy. And when I don't, I'm going to move on to the next one.
I'm going to take those pieces of advice and I'm going to apply them to my life.
It isn't like that every day. And whenever I'm not like that every day, my mom reminds me, my sisters remind me, my friends remind me. And when they're the ones that are not like that every day, I'm there to remind them. So it's almost like you have to create a community that supports you and reminds you of who you truly are and who you want to be. So that's very important. Therefore, you have to be very selective with the people that you surround yourself with, and that's very, very important.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. And then you got to shake the tree sometimes of the bad apples.
Oh my God, it's always good. The same way you clean your house and you remodel, every now and then you got to clean your friends list and remodel, you know?
All the time. Sometimes it's spring cleaning and it's like, you know what?
You gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go.
Well, because it's funny, like as you hit different points in your career, I'm sure you've seen there are the people that have come along for the ride with you and are so happy for your success, and then there are the people that splinter and now start to resent your success or get jealous of your success, and those are the people that you don't want around.
No,
and
you don't.
You can't have them around you because
energy is very strong, and it can affect you a great deal. And I am a very, what's the word? ¿Cuál es la palabra? I'm a gut instinct. I don't like to be around people that are too bitter. You know, you can only try so much to lift up a friend who's having a bad day, but when they're having a bad month and then it turns into a year, and then it turns into 2 years, you kind of have to, you know, set your boundaries, especially when it's starting to take away from you. Yeah. It's very important to kind of have that discipline, that type of discipline. And because envy and jealousy and bitterness are emotions that anybody's prone to have, which is why you have to understand that and fight against it. It's a battle. But I refuse to surrender to it, because I cannot be miserable for someone else's success when I don't know their journey. Yeah. It is highly inconsiderate and very ill-hearted to want to wish someone bad, you know, and it consumes you.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't like it.
It brings you just as much bad as you're probably wishing on everybody else.
Yes, I don't compete with anybody. I compete with myself. I don't compare myself to anybody.
How do you keep your edge, though, if you're not competing with anybody?
I compete with myself. I'm a huge perfectionist. I guess that's what keeps me always going. I'm a very hyperactive person. I need to be learning something always and
Gemini.
teaching something. Yes, absolute Gemini. So you know, I'm easily disappointed in myself when I'm not giving the best. And when I know nobody needs to tell me when something goes wrong, and I know it's my responsibility that I could have been doing better. I know it first, you know, and also when I don't, thank God I have somebody around me that's willing to remind me. So I can't. If I start looking to my right and to my left, there's always going to be someone better than me. There's always going to be someone that's going through a much difficult time than me. There's always going to be someone thinner or thicker than me, lighter, taller, you know. And that's who they are. Yeah. The same way that this is who I am. I like who I am. I like working with what I got, and I've never wanted to be anybody else. I just didn't understand when I was bullied, you know, because I would look in the mirror going, "What are they talking about? Like I'm okay, you know. I can work with this." When we were in Dominican Republic, it's just we got picked on a lot. Because we were sort of like, you know, the New Yorkers, and we weren't as well off. We were going to a very prestigious school because my mom wanted us to always have a very good education, and some people sometimes aren't getting the best upbringing in their homes, and they come to school and they're projecting that onto you, and it's very mean. Children can be very, very cruel. In a very innocent way, but they can be really mean, and they can bully you a lot, and sometimes it can drive a child to go to extremes as trying to end their pain by hurting themselves. You know, thank God that I had my sisters and we kind of stuck it out, and then we learned to fight back. You know, I will never allow anybody to tell me what I am before I know who I am. It's impossible. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't make it any easier at the time. I used to have to hide
You did?
During school lunch.
Why?
I used to have to hide because everybody was nasty and mean, and they were bullies, and it was so hard. But I had a best friend who's still my best friend to this day since the 7th grade.
Wow.
And she would hide with me during lunch by the lockers.
And you stick it out.
You just ride it out, and then
one day you just fight back.
Yeah.
And then that person goes away, or you end up being really good friends with that person, and then you learn that person's in a really difficult spot in their lives. And then you have so much compassion for that person, and sometimes that person doesn't learn, but at least they're not picking on you.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's very important to teach your children to stand up for yourself. My sister has told my niece the same thing that my mother told us. It's like, you don't hit first, but if somebody's hurting you, you defend yourself.
Yeah.
And don't worry, if I'm ever called to come to school, Mommy will always have your back first until I hear everything. So we tell our niece that at all times, because I don't want my niece, as a woman, that one day will grow up. I don't want her to be a people pleaser. I want her to please herself first in every means of the word. Yeah. In every means of the word. And when I say that, I'm talking about everything. First.
I got it loud and clear.
Thank you.
There's so much I want to get to, but I know, I'm not going to be able to get to everything. But, one of the questions a Twitter follower of mine came to the table with was, obviously,
Wait, do I have a mirror?
Yeah, you look beautiful. Go for it.
No, I just, for some reason, you know what it's like to be in the heat and come into, like, the cold environment? Your nose gets a little, like, either it's too dry. Thank you so much.
Mine's all wet.
Or it gets wet, yeah. So we're both doing that. Oh, God, can I get a napkin?
This is what happens naturally in the middle of interviews.
Pretty much, you guys.
We've got a tissue
so sorry.
coming. I'll keep talking throughout.
This isn't live, right?
Yeah, no, it's like all...
It's live right now.
Say hello to everybody.
You guys, I'm going to clean my nose, like, online.
I'll do mine at the same time.
Yeah, perfect.
Give me a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, Jesus, do you need a mirror?
I'm going right up in there because mine is, like, dripping.
Uh-huh. Oh, my God. Look at me.
And you had me, like, crying, so it's like my nose got all
I know,
wet.
that's why.
All right. So one of my Twitter followers was asking, obviously with Pirates of the Caribbean, you joined the cast, and it was well documented that you didn't have a good experience. Do you look back and do you think it was your age at the time that couldn't handle, like, the big, Hollywood movie? Because obviously you've done so many big franchise films since. Do you look back and think maybe you were just, not ready for it yet?
I think it's everything.
Yeah.
I think I was definitely, it was my first time really being on a film of that magnitude. But I learned so much of what not to be. Not to be arrogant, to keep your humility, to treat everybody with respect, whether they're the extras, or they're the lead characters, whether it's the producer or it's the gaffer. You treat everybody with respect, and you don't become an opportunist and a person that only speaks to people, only treats people nice that are best suiting their benefits, So I learned that a lot, and I'm very open about it because I really feel that it's important to get that out there, because there is a lot of misuse of power in the business that we're in, and it's so not nice.
Yeah.
But I've also, the cast, they were all wonderful. From Johnny Depp to Pirate number 35. And it was such a beautiful community of artists. And there's something beautiful that happens when artists stick together. You learn to create a very harmonious environment when the cameras are on. And that's what happened when we were on set. And I do believe that the leaders, if you are a director or a producer, you are the captain of your ship. Therefore, everybody's going to establish the energy that you establish on the set. So choose wisely and be better, That's all. And then, the great thing was, that same year, I ended up working on The Terminal with Steven Spielberg, and this is one of the most... I respected amazing directors that we have, in film business. And he was the most humble, most amazing, a father, a husband, a friend first, over anything. And I remember feeling, wow, in 1 year I learned what not to be and what to be more of, and what to aspire to be when I grow up. And I was very, very grateful that I was able to work with him, because working with these kinds of directors gave me the confidence that what I'm doing is I'm moving in the right direction, and I'm also being seen by the right people, the people that I want to be seen by. And so that makes you feel like you are here, and that you matter.
And life's all about lessons, right?
Absolutely.
I want to talk about who inspires you. When you look back at past stars, is there anyone that you look to that inspires you the most, or inspired your path the most, or even anyone current?
Meryl Streep. And what I admire the most of her is that she's a private woman. You don't know that much about her life, because that's not what's important. It's her artistry. And she has been able to be so multifaceted that way. Primarily because she's exuberantly talented. But she's also a person, and she likes her life, and she respects her life, and she keeps it separate. And that's something that I admire very much in her and people like that. I would say Will Smith as well, because he's able to be a very hardworking, like Will Smith and Tom Cruise in that respect, where they're very hardworking, they're extremely professional and very talented, but they're nice people, and they make time for their fans, and that's very important. Let me see, Nina Simone.
Who I want to talk a lot about.
Oh, Jesus. Because,
for good reasons. I'm actually going to move over to her.
Because she was an artist that wasn't allowed to be who she really wanted to be because of like, I guess, things that she couldn't control, and she was very outspoken, completely outspoken, and very androgynous in the way she handled herself, and that's something that I admire a lot. And Jodie Foster. I think she's a woman. She's a creature to really observe and respect. She grew up in this business, and she's a very talented an artist, but also very, very private. I tend to like people that are very private, that I know very little about in their personal lives, because then when I sit down with my popcorn and I watch them, I'm looking at, Clarice, I know. and it's beautiful.
Is that why you think you were so conscious about keeping your personal life private?
Yes.
Yeah. Because you've done a great job at that.
Yes. I know. So it's unnatural for me to talk too much about private matters.
Yeah.
I was raised by ladies, and you don't talk about your business to the world, so much less to worlds with cameras. So you have to conduct yourself with a certain poise, and that's how I was raised. And the reality is that it's nobody's business, but my own. So it's like Billie Holiday sings. So that's something that I can't be anything else but that. I mean, I start sweating profusely when I have to talk about my personal life, and it's also because it's the animal in me that I want to protect. What is the most dearest in my life.
I want to go to Nina Simone right now, because you're starring in the biopic. It's an unauthorized biopic, and there has been a lot of controversy around it. Tell me what you think about the controversy, because, acting is it's acting. And, I don't know if you were approached for the role or if you went out for the role. I don't know what the situation was with that.
I was approached, yes.
But there's obviously so much being said about it. How does that make you feel? And do you think that anybody has a valid argument?
you know, it's such a delicate conversation, and it's almost like when it comes to race, it's delicate because I don't know how to go into it, because I wasn't raised in an environment where I labeled things and I labeled people and I labeled genders, you know. So to have to be in the epicenter of a race conversation is very difficult for me, because it's kind of unnatural.
Yeah.
That's one. I wasn't expecting it, so when it happened, I was very surprised. It was also by a community that I physically represent as well. But I am a very respectful person. In the same way I want my opinions and my decisions to be respected, I respect everybody else's. And it is a delicate matter when it comes to African American race in America, because of all the issues that have happened throughout our history. But I cannot allow anybody to discriminate me. I matter. I make decisions, and I know why I'm making them. I'm pretty sure that if everybody knew the whole story, they would have a little more compassion.
What do you mean by that?
For Nina, because I didn't go after the role. I was approached, and her story at the end of the day needs to be told. I don't want to go to the movies and sit down and watch another story of a male iconic figure.
Yeah.
And I don't want to cry for it and honor it when there were so many women throughout our history, throughout the world, whose stories need to be told so that we can feel present and very, very, very relevant, whether we're Black or we're Asian or, you know, or Indian. That's arbitrary, you know, when it comes to the fact that her story needed to be told, period. You know, so I united with Cynthia Mort, and I'm very, very proud of the work that we did, because at the end of the day, we weren't coming from any other place but love. And it's my love for Nina Simone and what she means to me that made me jump wholeheartedly and give the best of myself to tell her story. And I hope that people give themselves the opportunity to see it, and then they can make their own decisions. But it will not deter the pride that I feel being a part of this project and being who I am. So I understand it, I respect it, but I won't accept it in my life.
Yeah. What did she mean to you?
As an artist, everything. She was a woman that she was a classical pianist. She was an absolute gifted artist that was born this way.
Did you have to learn piano for this?
A little bit,
Okay.
yes. And for her whole life was to just be who she wanted to be, and then to be told that she can't be it. Her heart was broken at a very early age, and she was also living at a time where she couldn't walk through a front door, you know, but she had to play and entertain people. So she was very bitter, and she spoke the truth as much as she could. She was very misunderstood. So these are things that I see, and my heart breaks, but at the same time, I'm so proud of the person that she was, and then she left us her music that will continue to live forever. And I look at her, and she, to me, is one of the most beautifulest creatures I've ever seen in my life. Her confidence and her beauty was really, really, it's like awestrucking for me. So growing up loving her music, and then all of a sudden crossing paths with this story and sort of feeling like, okay, I'm going to be a part of this because it needs to be told, was nothing but a blessing for me. It was very intense, and but Cynthia Mort did an amazing job writing a script that brought so many beautiful people together, and every day on set was a spiritual journey for all of us, and it was a bigger understanding into Nina. And you would listen to songs that you grow up listening to, that you're probably hearing it for the 4,000th time, and all of a sudden you understand that line even more, or you understand that note that she takes with the piano, and you fall in love with her all over again. And it was amazing. And Cynthia Moore is a phenomenal woman, and I'm very happy that she was a female wanting to tell the story of a remarkable woman, and it brought a village of people together. So I'm looking forward to the film coming out and for us to share it with the world.
You know, I saw the pictures of you transformed into her, and when I saw them next to each other, you looked so much like her, like the eyes and stuff. And so you know, I'm sure you did an incredible job, just like,
I hope so.
just like you've done in every other film. And I think it's kind of unfortunate that you know, the things I was reading online, I was just like, she's an actress, she's playing a role, but there is that greater debate where it's, you know, are lighter skinned women taking those roles from the darker skinned women. And you know, I don't know how you feel about that, but
I mean, we can't deny that there is an imbalance in our society, and it reflects through our art and our politics and our religion and our societal structure. That is something that is undeniable. You can't say that there's not an elephant in the room when you know it's right there and it's been there since its conception of America. So that said, I'm not going to argue that, but I'm saying that the bigger battle that we will have is trying to be equal as women. So I much rather want to win that battle and then focus on all the other details that we have to take care of. You know, at the end of the day, one thing at a time. I can only be myself. I don't stand next to a woman that's darker and a woman that's blonde and go, okay, she's darker than me and she's light. I see her, I'm like, oh my God, check out her shoes, they're beautiful. Oh Jesus, look at her skin, it's gorgeous. Wow, she did something really nice with her hair. That's what I'm looking at. So when I choose a role, when I go after something, when I give all of myself, that's how I am. And I can't be anything else but who I am. So I can only speak my truth. And that's how I go about my life.
You're Zoe.
I'm Zoe.
Keep going back to Zoe.
Yes.
You know, did you have to sing in this biopic?
Huh?
Did you have to sing in this at all?
I did.
I'm sure you did, right?
Yes.
Are you a singer?
Yes.
Oh, well then,
yes.
that part was probably easy.
Yes, and I thought it was going to be more difficult, but it ended up being the less challenging part. Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about your fashion, because you are the fashion it girl. I still have the Hollywood Reporter of you and your stylist on the cover in my house, because it's one of my favorite issues they've done. Tell me about your process when it comes to fashion. I mean, you have to be dressed to the nines almost at all times. You're on press tours, you're doing interviews. How do you attack it? Is it a collaboration with your stylist?
Oh my God, absolutely. I'm learning. I feel like I'm her child half of the time, and I'm learning about new designers, and I'm learning about new collections of designers that we love and admire. I always think about my grandmother and my great-grandmother, who were seamstresses their whole lives, and they worked in factories in New York since the 60s. Oh, wow. So I have a backstage approach to fashion, you know, which is, it's the respect, and you honor the fact that it took someone a great amount of time to put this together, you know, from the embroidery to this fabric to these buttons. And it's not like a machine's made it, you know, it's people. It's usually women that sit all together and they're sewing and they're, you know, and then you have the designer that's drawing. It's a work of art. It's no different than a painter, a director, an actor, and I admire it so much. I enjoy it a great deal. I don't feel pressured by it. So,
so do you just try stuff you love, and then when you love it, you move on?
Yes, I don't, the same way I pick roles and I go after roles that I love and respect, I wear what I want to wear first. And then if people happen to like it, then slam dunk.
Yeah.
But if they don't, oh well, I love it. So I that's who I am, and Petra's the same way. So we tend to really enjoy our fittings, and sometimes they take hours, you know, because if I'm going on a world tour, I have to pick so many outfits for different photo calls, for different premieres in different countries. It's tiresome, you know, because you're exhausted half of the time because I'm acting, I'm doing interviews, I'm traveling, and then I have Petra for 5 hours, and we have to fit clothes after clothes after clothes.
You do a 5-hour fitting all at
once? Yes.
My God.
But we make it fun. We bring our grandma, we open a bottle of champagne, we put music, we make jokes, we take a break, we drink coffee. It's, you know, I could see it as work and be completely in pain, but I can also see it as art and enjoy it, and that's what I do.
I love it. You're on the cover of InStyle magazine right now. You've graced the covers of so many magazines. You're on Allure as well.
Yes.
Is there a goal in mind? And I know our very dear Gary Mantouche is in the room, our publicist that we share.
Mantouche.
What are the goals, Gowie?
How much do we have? Tell us.
What are we working on here?
Umpire.
We got
5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes?
we got like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the goals magazine-wise? What covers have you not done yet that you still want to do?
I mean, I don't know. It's I think I want to do, well, how do I say it without feeling like obviously it's everybody's desire to be on the cover of Vogue or Vanity Fair. I do believe that there is an imbalance there too, that there should be more diversity in their covers, and I do understand that it's a business and subscribers and people, so you have to numbers and numbers and numbers, but at some point you have to kind of take a break from that and be a pioneer in trying to make a change. So I strongly encourage the leaders that are guiding these magazines, not only magazines, but films and music and art, people that are in positions that can make a difference, to really be a part of making a difference. It would be nice to be on the cover of Vogue and Vanity Fair, but let me tell you, if it doesn't happen, I'm still going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to carry myself with pride and a lot of dignity, because that won't define what I do and who I am. And so that is how I feel.
Hey, I'm sure you guys are going to make it there.
Yes.
I'm not worried. I also want to talk about one last thing, Caribean.
Oh.
Because I saw your shorts. Caribean is the short film that you directed, obviously. And I loved it. I thought it was so beautiful. I kept thinking she must have used her friends from Avatar in here somehow. Like
I did.
Right?
I did. A lot of my friends, came out to support the movie. I had my first AD from Avatar be the first AD on the set. My sister and I worked with an amazing prosthetic team that put together like the little alien that we helped design. My best friend Frankie was the one that wrote the script for us, and it was Mariel, Cicely, and I that conceived the idea along with Frankie, which was wonderful. I called actor friends that came out and said absolutely.
Right, it's so many stars.
Join.
You had Mullen and Bradley. Was it hard to direct other stars?
No, I think the first 5 minutes before I yelled the first action, which my sister and I held hands and did it together, was a bit nerve-wracking. But then after that, I completely forgot, and I was just a part of this collaborative process of trying to put this story together. And it was absolutely one of the best 3 days that I've spent on a set ever. To be able to direct with my sister and having my other sister there and be surrounded by so many people that are there to support you and that are true artists, and trying to tell a beautiful story relating to such a very important topic for us, which is autism and bullying. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was a very beautiful experience, and we were very happy with how well received it was. And actually it premiered at a film festival in Portugal like 2 months ago, and we heard that the reception was really, really beautiful, and it was massive, so we're very happy with that.
That's so great. Do you think you'll direct more?
Yes.
You have the bug?
Yes. I love doing films, and I want to explore other areas besides being in front of the camera. Absolutely.
Nice. Well, before you go, I have one last thing to ask you.
Yes.
How do we say goodbye in Klingon?
I can't do it.
What?
I don't know.
What?
I don't know. It literally was 3 pages of dialogue. I memorized them, and I was so nervous, and I think that's why I memorized it so quickly. I said them on the 3 days that we were shooting that scene, and then JJ tells me, all right, say something to me in Klingon. I was like, what?
What about Navi?
I can tell you, you see me. So, what is it? Wait. Oh my God.
It's pressure. It's pressure time.
It is. It is. Watch me. As soon as I leave, I'm going to go like, oh my God, I see you.
I know.
Navi.
But you know what? That happens to me even in Greek. Greek was my first language, and sometimes someone will ask me to say something, and on the spot, I can't think of it. And then when I walk away, I'm like, they're going to think I'm such a moron. How did I not remember this? But
okay, so you say goodbye in Greek, and I'll say goodbye in Spanish.
Okay. Kalinichta.
Adios. Un beso.
I love it. You know, everyone has a story. I'm choking right now. I'm like, everybody has a story. Thank you. Gracias. Mi amiga. Okay, everyone has a story, and this is just part of Zoe Saldana's. Hopefully we'll get to do this again, and I can ask you even more questions. To see more about my time today with Zoe, visit conversationswithmaria.com, and you can see her film, Star Trek Into Darkness. Hopefully you'll all rush out to the theaters to see it. Thank you so much, and talk to you guys soon. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
From executive producers Harvey Weinstein, Lisa Gregorish, Kevin Undergaro, Maria Menounos, and the entire Conversations staff, we would like to thank you for listening to Conversations with Maria Menounos. To post comments or questions, be sure to visit conversationswithmaria.com or tweet at Maria Menounos. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Weinstein Company, Telepictures, and Underman Omega Girl Productions.